From interviews to jail calls, Ditto Transcripts delivers fast, confidential, and court-ready transcription for law enforcement agencies. Ditto is CJIS compliant and is already working with agencies all over the U.S., including the Washington State Patrol and the National Park Service Investigations Unit. Get started now at dittotranscripts.com. That's dittotranscripts.com. When you don't know how a recruit's really doing until week 10, that's a problem. TrackWired's field training management software replaces old school paperwork with a clean, automated system. Streamlined reporting, knowledge comprehension, and crystal clear performance trends, all handled in one secure place. TrackWire gives you real-time insight into their field training process so supervisors get real-time visibility. FTOs save hours and recruits stay on track. If you want to tighten up your FTO program, start by going to trackwire.com. That's tracwire.com. The views and opinions expressed by the host and guests of this show do not represent their employing agency, department, or organization. All information should be regarded as anecdotal, contextual, and educational, and should not be misinterpreted as legal or medical advice. Welcome to Blue Grit Radio, the podcast that explores making better cops for a better community. I'm your host, Eric Tung. I've been an active police officer since 2007. We will dive into the aspects of police culture, health and wellness, leadership, and mindset. You'll hear from experts not only from policing, but all industries as they relate to being our best with purpose, passion, and positivity. Join me as we share stories, lessons, and advice so we can all be better for ourselves, our teams, our families, and our communities. Sleep deprivation is like one of the go-to torture systems, right? Like as people are kind of nodding off and you like jar them, you blast music and all that. Like
Yes.
Very awful things that happen in the world. But let's not do it to ourselves. Let's set ourselves up right. So sorry, I keep dancing around. We go down these like really fantastic points.
No, it's okay.
Sleep hygiene. Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Please tell us what that is.
Well, in the broad scheme of things, because I've come to realize that I use the term sleep hygiene and some people don't even realize what that is. And so it's very much an umbrella term for like, what are you doing to help your sleep? Because we definitely want to do things to help our sleep. We also do a lot of things to get in our own way. And so it's all about how do we optimize? How do we do things that are going to improve our chances of falling asleep and staying asleep? So there's tons and tons and tons of things that we can do. Some are very easy, some are free, and then there are things that are a little bit more involved. And I think that this is, as a psychologist, I think about the stages of change. And I think that it's really important that we just touch upon this and then I'll answer your question. Is whenever it comes to the stages of change, we have various different stages. And the first few stages, or the first stage I would say, is the person doesn't even know that there's a problem. So there may be people listening here who don't even know that sleep is a problem for them. And then we move on to the next stage where they start to get some information, maybe as they're listening to this podcast here, that's like, oh, sleep issues are connected to Alzheimer's, sleep issues are connected to cardiovascular issues. So they start to realize that there's a problem. And then the next stage of change is going to be, well, do I want to do anything about this or not? And then we move into the action phase where you're actually doing things to make change. And then we're getting into the maintenance. And so when I think about working with people, some people are just not ready to change yet. And especially I would say like young folks who are just like running and gunning and they're excited and they're invincible and they're just pushing and the job is so exciting. And then eventually it starts to wear you out and to burn you down. But I should say burn you out. But it's just really important to realize where people are on these stages of change. And that's also why I start to give some scary statistics too, is that you've known all your life that sleep is important and sleep is good for you and that you need to be sleeping every night. But it's really the reason why I put those things out there is to try and push people along the stages of change to get to action. Now, if we're going to talk about action, some of the things that are super simple, super free. First one, ironically, is in the morning. When you wake up, one of the first things that would be lovely for you to do if you have the luxury of being able to do so is within an hour of waking up, getting outside, just a few minutes, but looking towards the sun when it's at a low angle. And that's going to help kind of create some good hormones that are going to help you get alert, get ready for your day. And also if there's any lingering melatonin, suppress that. And ironically enough, doing that first thing in the morning, even though it's hours and hours away from your bedtime, also helps to kind of strengthen the circadian rhythm that will later down the road help us feel sleepy later that evening. So that's important to do. It's free, it's easy.
Yeah, can I cut in for those that
Yes.
are in, the higher latitudes, right? So I'm in the Pacific
Yep.
Northwest, and that becomes a thing before too long. We're recording start of September here,
Mhm.
where the sun hides from us. And do you see or do you support people getting certain types of lights to do
Yes.
that in the morning?
Yeah, I do. That's a great question because, I live in Pennsylvania, so we like June, July, and August are fantastic. We have early morning sun, but then it starts to dwindle and dwindle, and then you get into seasonal depression. But I highly recommend, and this is an absolute game changer for me, and most of the people who I recommend later come back to me who say, "Oh my gosh, this is such a game changer." And it is a sunrise alarm clock. Please do not spend a lot of money on this. Don't spend more than $25 on it. I don't know how those people justify the price tags of some of those very expensive ones. You can
Mm-hmm.
even get a smart light bulb to put in your existing lamp for very cheap. And with that, what's happening is that it's just really hard to wake up in a completely dark room. And as we're getting into winter or people who live in different places where it is going to be darker at your wake up time, it just makes it that much more challenging to wake up. So I highly recommend either a sunrise alarm clock or a smart bulb that you can change. So I have both, and I also travel with one too because it's that important to me. And I would say for me, I have so say for example, if my alarm's going to go off at 6, at 5:50 it starts to very slowly but gradually brighten. So when it gets to my desired time of 6 a.m., that it is full brightness. Then what I layer on top of that is when I'm getting ready for work, I'm doing my hair, I'm doing my makeup, I have it's called a happy light,
Mm-hmm.
but this is a very specific type of light for light box therapy that gives off an incredible amount of light, not nearly to the degree of the sun, but much more so than your typical lights around your home. And so while I'm getting ready for my morning, my 10 to 15 minute like kind of routine, I will have that facing me, usually about a foot to a foot and a half away from me. And all you have to do is turn it on. And basically, that type of light, especially if you can't get early morning sunlight, kind of mimics that and again helps to strengthen that circadian rhythm. And I also bought one that's kind of small. It's kind of the size of an iPad mini, I would say. But the reason why I bought that is also for jet lag because sunlight is our most powerful cue for when to be awake and when to be asleep. And so if you're someone who travels a lot and just really struggles with jet lag, that is an option for you too. So I want to make sure I throw in that little tip.
Yeah, no, that's a huge thing. And I think that when we're already grappling with sleep issues and then we're trying to do the things like go on vacation and take the family out, and then you're like making it that much worse because jet lag is like just throwing this wrench in
Yes.
things. But it's also relevant for people that work shift work and they're working
Yes.
swings or they're working nights. And, I did the whole basically take a nap and then be awake to, spend time with my person, but then we on the converse, like, we oversleep and then we're just kind of messed up. And so I think that it's worth reminding people or kind of nudging folks like this when the doc says, hey, reset your circadian rhythm with these things. Does that just kind of help smooth it out if you kind of put some of these things into play in your week when you're changing hours as well?
So, if you have the luxury of having a consistent schedule, that's going to be fantastic for you. And one thing I also want to throw in there too, this is kind of like a lovely bonus if you can do it, is watching the sunset. Because again, our caveman ancestors knew when it was time to be awake because the sun rose. And then they
Mm,
knew it was time to go to bed when the sun set. And so while watching the sunset is lovely and the beautiful colors, it's also signaling to us that reduction of sunlight or blue wavelength is starting to signal to the brain, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the pineal gland, okay, hey, it's starting to get dark. Let's start to release some melatonin here soon. So, if you have the luxury of being able to do that, wonderful. If you don't, something else you can do is instead of keeping all the brights on in your home, start to dim those lights. You can also do that with smart bulbs, or you can just turn off your overheads and use lamps or candles, simple things like that. So, I think that that's really valuable. Now, whenever you talk about people who are doing shift work, it does get to be very challenging because you may have shift work on some days, you may be off on other days, just like what you said, like there's all kinds of social things that you want to be a part of and you don't want to be sleeping through that, like obviously. So it just gets to be very challenging, especially if it's rotating shifts. But if we just take, for example, someone who is working nights, let's just try and take an easy example. One of the things that you can do is you're going to start your shift and you're going to work your night shift. And then And I think this is really important because there's a lot of like mixed things that are out there. When you are getting ready to come home and your shift is over, a lot of people have been talking about putting on sunglasses to come home.
Hmm.
While that might make sense because we want to capitalize on that maximum sleepiness, that also sets you up for potentially like a car accident if you're driving yourself home, if you're biking, if you're walking, like just putting yourself in potentially a dangerous situation. If you have someone who's driving you or you're riding public transportation, having the sunglasses is fine and it's a great recommendation to kind of hang on to that sleepiness. But if you are driving yourself home, ditch the sunglasses because I'd rather you get home safely and be less
Yeah.
sleepy than have an
Hmm.
accident on the ride home. So that's something that's really important that just isn't highlighted enough. And then once you get home, again, there's so many different priorities tugging at your time. But the number one thing that you need to do, again, we're trying to capitalize off that sleepiness, is go to bed right then and there. If you choose to use melatonin, that would be the time to take it. So, not taking it when you're at work before your drive home, I think that that's very important to highlight as well because melatonin doesn't initiate sleep, but it signals to your brain that it's time to sleep. So if you took that before you got in your car to commute home, that could also create another layer of dangerousness that we don't want to do. So right when you get home, if you choose to take melatonin, that would be the time to take it. So yes, we may think about, oh, I need to let the dog out. I need to do this. I need to unload the dishwasher. This is the time for you to go to bed. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. You need to go to bed. And it's also important if we're sleeping in the daytime to have this bedroom that's optimized, dark, cool, quiet, but also just making sure because it's daytime, it's as quiet as it possibly can be. Whether that's white noise machines, whether that's having some like extra weather stripping like around your door, your windows, whatever you can do. But that's going to be even more important for people who are working shift work. Now, trying to sleep as long as possible, that may be challenging just depending upon what's going on, all the different time demands, all the things that you want to be doing. So some people may sleep as long as they can, or some people may do what's called like a split nap. And they may sleep for a period of time, be awake for a period of time, and then take another nap before their shift starts. So I
Yeah, I
know I'm
tried
giving
that.
you a ton of information right now, but I kind of want to go through like the whole cycle
Yeah.
and then we'll get back to it. So if this person is going to do the split nap, so they get home from work, they sleep as long as they can, they're awake for a while, they're doing errands or whatever, then they take another nap before their shift. That's when you can use a sunrise alarm clock. And that is also when you could interweave that light box therapy to kind of wake you up
Mm.
to be ready to then go to work and go on your shift. So that would be in the most basic example,
Yeah. No, it gives a lot of
one
things to
rotation.
think about, and I think that the split nap, when I tried it, it was literally because I was so exhausted, but I was doing, again, not the ideal things, right? So if I was not sleeping well, if I were to do it over, go back in time, or, shake those listening that are doing what I was doing, it would be maybe you don't go like sling some weights around when you can't sleep more than 3.5, 4 hours. Maybe you go on a nice long walk. Maybe you read. Maybe you do things that are more nourishing and more recuperative just in nature. So try that. I didn't do a whole lot of that. I would go the woo method of like, oh yeah, I heard grounding or I read grounding's like really good to help promote that, which is cool.
Yeah.
But not when you're trying to do it like I was, like slinging, like, oh, I'm gonna just like work out barefoot in my backyard then because that's grounding. And then I'm just like, again, I'm trying to like insert the bias to suit my preference,
Yeah.
which is not helping the goal. I do want to ask you, so like I like the point of avoiding sunglasses because if it's limiting your visibility, like that's not great. You're operating a motor vehicle, and for many people,
Yes.
take home cars and patrol work, like you still need to have some level of vigilance for sure. What do you think
Yes.
about like a light tint or like a clear blue light blocking glasses? Like, would that be a potential hack to try to limit that?
No, I would also just remove any sunglasses or blue light blocking glasses because we at that point to keep you safe, to get you home, we do want that blue light.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a
And
great
again, if
point.
you're a passenger, rock those blue light glasses, rock the dark sunglasses, but if you are driving, we want to make sure you get home safely. One thing that I want to mention, another scare tactic, and I know that a lot of people don't have control over their schedules, especially if you're new and you're not a veteran, you're not seasoned, you don't have a whole lot of say in your schedule. But I think that this is so important for people to know is that shift work, especially working nights, is classified as a modifiable cancer risk.
Mm-hmm.
It is a known carcinogen, and it's dose dependent. So the longer that you're working night shifts, the higher it increases your risk for cancer. Again, I want to be very clear. I'm not saying one causes the other. There are lots of other genetic factors, lifestyle factors, age, all kinds of things that come into play. However, we do know that this has been classified as a modifiable risk factor for cancer.
Yeah, that's the WHO, right? World Health Organization
Mhm.
put something out on that a while ago.
Yes.
Um, okay, so with that, I like how you talked about integrating light, but then also integrating darkness. And so to recap, like the the I guess the significance of light, especially if you're darkening your room, is key. So you brought up some of the things you could do to try to darken your room. I think a lot of people that work shift work, they get the blackout curtains and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I've even heard tips as to, well, one, don't have a TV in your bedroom, but if you do
Yes.
have electronics, like try to cover those little green and red dots, just
Mhm.
because it is more light, right? It is disruptive. Our bodies, I believe, maybe specifically, like studies have shown that these little tiny lights can really show a marked, measurable disruption in people's sleep.
Yeah, the research out there is there's some research out there that shows that, and I certainly subscribe to that because I believe that I am very sensitive to that, and I have, like, electrical tape, like, all over my room on, like, any
Yeah.
chargers or anything. And there's more research that's coming out that's kind of disputing that, but I would say it's not that hard. Take 30 minutes and try and optimize your room. And I would say if you're someone who has a lot of windows, you could try some like blackout film and then also some blackout curtains. You could try and use some like Velcro to make sure that you don't have any like light leakage around like the
Mm,
corners. Um, I would say the same thing with your door. Like you could kind of get some weather stripping or like a rolled up towel under the door if there's any light coming underneath of there. I have an amazing sleep mask. I love it. It is called Manta, Manta, not
oh yeah.
sponsored, wish I was. But those I take it everywhere with me and it's just fabulous and it has like these really lovely like deep eye sockets that
Hmm.
just do all the things that you can to optimize your room, but then still there will just be some slivers of light that you just can't get. And so I think the
Yeah.
sleep mask is going to be like the cherry on top. But again, when it's daytime, there might be traffic or there might be like guy next door's mowing his lawn. So I would say I know that people don't like earplugs. I know first responders don't at all, but I would say if you're willing to try it, like earplugs plus like white noise or like
Hmm.
nature sounds, because we are so sensitive to noise, and especially whenever we're talking about our very hyper vigilant first responder population, like you are so much more in tune with those types of little sounds that maybe other people would just not listen to at all. So I would say just trying to optimize the bedroom. And then also, we didn't touch upon this, but we want the bedroom to be cool. And the reason why we do this is that is so light is our primary driver of our circadian rhythm, but temperature also has a hand too. And so when the bedroom is cool and we're talking low 60s, that is going to help our body transition into sleep and to stay asleep. That's what's naturally supposed to happen at night, and that's often times why we'll talk about taking a warm shower or a warm bath before bed, is
Hmm.
that ironically or paradoxically that helps drop your internal body temperature, which then signals to your brain and to your body that it's time to fall asleep and then to help you stay asleep.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're going to try and capitalize on that by working with our bedroom temperature while we're sleeping in the daytime.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. So on the coolness, and that was something I didn't learn until maybe the last couple of years, which was like you hear cool, 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 and then
Mhm.
I would get off shift in the nighttime, or especially back when I was working graves, and oftentimes for like half the year I'd be cold. Like I would just be running cold from being outside and going on calls and stepping on my car, and I'd come in and I'd be like, man, I'm so cold, and I would just get under the covers and bundle way up, and then you start to heat up as you're under it, and that could disrupt sleep. So I love this, and I do use it sometimes, especially when I'm a little bit more restless. But having a warm shower, a warm bath, like that's soothing, that's relaxing, right? And so
Yeah.
feeling bad because it's not actually disrupting sleep, but it is, as Doc said, your body's now warmed up. But when you get out, it goes through this cooling process, right? And so personally, I hugely subscribe to having a white noise, or if it's travel, it's on my phone. You can find all these like
Oh
app
yeah.
tracks on Spotify or whatever. But then it's like an air filter in our room, cracking the window usually a little bit on my side because I get warmer than my wife does. And so all that, like there's little hacks.
this is an investment, I'll say that much, but I am very sensitive to temperature, and don't ask why. I live in a place that doesn't have air conditioning. So like 9 months out of the year, it's no big deal. June, July, and August, it's a problem. And I've
Yeah.
tried cooling sheets, I've tried cooling pads, I've tried like I have this ceiling fan that like could fall any day and like make me the star of the next Final Destination movie. So like I've tried like a standing fan. I've tried all these different things and I'm just
I
a
need to
hot
get you a window
sleeper.
unit, doc. I think you've made it. You can.
I
It's keeping
don't
you grounded though.
so I live like in a sub unit, so I don't even have any
Mm.
windows. So like I it's a problem.
It's a perfect
Don't
sleep
ask.
cave though, right?
It is. 9 months out of the year it's amazing. I don't have to worry about light at all really. But those 3 months, I struggled to sleep, and so I've made an investment, and I have an 8 sleep, again, not sponsored, but
Mhm.
one really cool thing about it is that it changes throughout the night. So after about 2 weeks of learning you, it has this, like, autopilot feature, and it changes throughout the night because your temperature should drop, like, 1 to 2 degrees as you're falling asleep. It should fluctuate a bit, and then as you're starting to wake up, your body temperature should warm. That's how it goes, and so with this bed, it's really cool because it learns you and then it naturally does that throughout the night. And I'll wake up the next morning and I'll have a text message from the bed saying, "Hey, like we adjusted your temperature 59 times last night. Like, did you sleep better?" And I think what's really cool, and one of the things that you're mentioning that I hear all the time, because I'll do tons of sleep lectures and I often have couples there, and one inevitably loves it hot and the other one inevitably loves it cold.
Of
And so
course.
what's
That's why
really
they're
cool
together, right? Yeah.
always, 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 always. And so one of the cool things about this bed is that you can each have your own temperature control. So it can go all the way down to 55 degrees and all the way up to 110. And each person has their own unique customized temperature control. So I think it's really cool to know that there are gadgets out there that it's very possible it might not be in your price range, but also think like we spend a third of our lives asleep and
Hope.
we should. We
Yeah.
should.
It's like,
And I do believe that that bed that my 8 sleep does make a very big difference whenever it comes to my sleep and helping me stay asleep throughout the night. So I just want to throw that out there. And I'm sure that there are other products that are coming on the market and other mattresses and things like that that I'm just not aware of because I already own one. I'm not in the market anymore.
mhm.
But I want people to know that there are options out there for them, especially if this temperature control is an issue when sharing a bed with a partner.
Yeah. 100. That's nuts. That's like heat therapy. But
It's well,
that's
one of
not.
the things that I do when like in the cold winter mornings is that I have a heat alarm that's like built into the
Oh.
bed.
Mhm.
And so say if I wanna wake up at 6, like maybe at 5:45, like it starts to warm up and get real nice and toasty so that I also wake up like in a very nice
Yeah.
smooth transition. So it's cool. And they also have like a vibrational alarm. So if you don't wanna wake up your partner, like that's one way that you can wake up as
Oh
well. So
yeah.
it's very cool, but it is an investment.
Yeah, that is very cool. And yeah, like just like Dr. Leah is saying, this is an investment, and we all think about either currently or in past years. We've all spent an ungodly amount of money on something that we think is in the name of health. But it's almost like people that are really into fitness and performance, like athletics. And if you ask them if people should be spending money on supplements or just better quality food, and it's always better quality food.
Mm.
So if you think about like where are we spending our money, shoot, like yeah, there's the 8 sleep, like Dr. Leah said. We don't have such a such a bougie mattress, but I will say like I held off on getting a new mattress. I was like, it hasn't been that long, it hasn't been that long, and we got like a decent one. Very like it's a good mattress. It's not like top tier, but it made such a difference. I mean, you're
Mm.
literally thing. You feel so good, and we all know when you go in a hotel, like if it's not a great bed, you know right away, and it's your sleep's terrible. Your pillow, right? Like pillows, like a
Mhm.
lower hanging fruit cost point for something that feels good and is like cooling perhaps for you. And then also, I think like you brought up the example um, of using a towel. Like that's my go-to, rolling up a towel under a door, especially if I'm traveling or something like that.
Yes.
Unplugging the TV, getting rid of those lights and trying to get some ambient noise because yeah, all the external noise is very jarring for sure. Um, okay. Melatonin. So some folks, including myself, did use melatonin for a stint, but then some people don't react well, and then others get concerned that it's been said to slow or kind of reduce your your natural melatonin production. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so one of the cool things that we didn't even talk about is I'm also a prescriber, which means so I'm a prescribing psychologist, which means that I can prescribe medications. Now, melatonin is easily purchased anywhere at your big box store. But I think that I kind of have the knowledge of the pharmacokinetics and all
Mm,
the different things that come together in how supplements or prescription sleep aids should be used. So, whenever it comes to melatonin, this is, I would probably say, well, maybe one of the biggest sleep myths that's out there. Melatonin does not cause sleep. It is not a sedative. It is not a sleep aid. It tells the brain that it's time to feel sleepy. It does not cause or initiate sleep. And I think that that's so important to drive home because people think, oh, well, I'll just pop a melatonin, like it'll be just fine. The research out there tells us that melatonin will help you fall asleep faster, about 3 minutes faster.
mm, okay.
That's pretty measly. I don't know that that's worth it. And then also with regard to sleep quality, it increases your sleep quality 2%.
Oh,
So it's really not this exciting thing that you think that it is. So, as you mentioned, melatonin is a naturally occurring neurotransmitter in our body. So, as I was mentioning earlier about getting up early and getting the sun into our eyes, what's happening is that it's going into our eyes, back to the the suprachiasmatic nucleus,
it's okay.
into
This
the
is a big
pineal
word I don't
gland.
understand anyway.
So that's your master keeper, is your suprachiasmatic nucleus, and it
Mhm.
goes to the pineal gland. And the pineal gland is what's going to release melatonin. So you don't need to buy it. Your body already does it. It does it every night. With regard to, and I've heard this before. I've gotten this question a lot. And with regard to taking it and it decreasing your body's ability to make it, I'm honestly not that sure about it. I would say that that's a myth off the
Mm,
top of my head. I don't know. And I kind of like to go down that rabbit hole and see. But first and foremost, I would just say, like, unless you're a shift worker or unless you are traveling across time zones, those are the only two like major categories who should really be using it. There are some other people who have advanced sleep disorder or delayed sleep disorder or have like a couple of like more rare conditions that we're not going to get into here today that could also be using melatonin. But for the vast majority of our listeners, really the only categories of people who should be using melatonin and will get a benefit from it are going to be shift workers and people who are traveling across time zones. So it's not this wonderful sleep aid that people think that it is. It's really, truly not. And also, there's research out there to show, and this is just kind of terrifying, that what is on the label and what is actually in the capsule or the gummy or whatever it is
mm,
oftentimes do not match. Now, it
yeah.
could be the proportion of melatonin that's actually in it could be significantly lower, but oftentimes it's much, 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 much higher, which
Mhm.
is a much higher dose than what would actually be found naturally in your body. Also, when that happens, you may feel like you're waking up with kind of a hangover.
Mm,
That's because that's way too much melatonin that your body just doesn't know what to do with because it's
yeah.
above the level that it would ever naturally be producing. So there's a lot of problems with that. And then also when you go to get melatonin or anything off of the shelves, I think people think that there's a lot more regulatory rules than there truly are. And I think that this is just, I have a whole chapter on this of like a public service announcement in my book of when you go and you get powders, vitamins, supplements, this, that, it is not regulated by the FDA. And there's a supplement or there's a
Isn't that
there's a
nuts? Isn't that
statement
nuts? Yeah.
on the back that says like this product does not diagnose, treat, cure, prevent XYZ, but they can still put lots and lots of claims on the bottle. And
Mhm.
so there's concerns about, well, where is this product being made? Is the facility clean? And oftentimes we'll find that there are contaminants of lead and arsenic and mercury, like things that should not be in your body because these facilities are not clean. There's not regulatory things, but also
Mhm.
there may be other things in your products, and this is specifically, I'm talking about melatonin here, there was a study done where it wasn't just melatonin in it, it was also CBD, which can
Hmm.
be a problem for folks who have very strict rules and regulations about what it is that they can put in their body,
Yeah.
based on the job and the position that they have. So that's just a major issue. And also, I know that this is not a podcast for children, but parents who are listening, please do not give melatonin for your children. This is not something that we know the effects long term of. This
Hmm.
is, again, not something that's going to help them fall asleep any faster. I mean, 3 minutes, really? And that study probably wasn't even done on children. But this is not
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
time or
And
the place.
especially when you think about kids and like that's probably the gummy form, and right. So we think about like, oh, the dosage
Candy.
because yeah, like you're making this giant vat of like jello, like goo, and then it's just getting poured out in these molds. So it's not all the same, right? How did we verify? And there's like third party verifications and things like this, but then
Yes,
even then,
there
are
are.
they yeah, like I think read the fine print and be your own advocate to read this, whether it's a protein supplement or a sleep supplement, that kind of
Yes.
thing.
Yes.
And oftentimes I found that you get what you pay for.
Mhm.
I think it is also, yeah, you did mention this, but for an example, a lot of the over the counter melatonin will be dosed at like 5 or 10 milligrams, which I think if you're, yeah, Dr. Leah's shaking her head pretty rapidly.
Yeah.
So I have heard, and I know you can find, 1 or 2 milligrams, and then I would say like if you're thinking about it, and I want the doctor's opinion, of course, but you can get pill cutters super cheap, and so you could even cut like a 1 milligram down to like half or like a quarter, and just kind of see if you notice anything because some people do report probably because of high dosage, like they feel so groggy, they have these
Yep.
like really stressful dreams. It just takes your brain and your mind somewhere else if you're not used to it.
Yeah, so it's funny, as I was putting together the book, I went to a very well-known researcher about chronotypes and just to talk about and make sure
Mm,
that all of
mhm.
my facts were correct. And he had said, okay, so if people are going to use melatonin, this is the dose that I think you should put in the book. And he says 0.5 milligrams to like 3 milligrams. And
Oh,
so
okay.
it just so happened that we had this meeting and I was also getting ready to go overseas. And so I was like, selfishly, can I ask you to come help me come up with a jet lag plan? And we did. And so I'm not a fan of melatonin, but I did decide to go and get some to try it out for this jet lag plan.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you what, I went to 3 different stores and it was so hard to find a small dose. I was
Yeah.
shocked, but also it was a good, experiment for me to just see what the normal consumer like, if you don't wanna go to 3 different stores, you wanna go to 1 store and you wanna pick it up, well, if it says 10 milligrams on it,
Yeah.
that's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And we've done this crash course. I think it's worth mentioning because I this is where I go to when we talk about kind of that sleep routine or winding down. A
Mhm.
lot of us like our shows, and a lot of cops like it might not be cops, but it's like cop shows, but like suspense. I found personally that watching an exciting action sometimes just like revs me up, right?
Yep.
It's that sympathetic system, your active brain because of all the you want to figure out who's angling against who, and like this House of Cards, Game of Thrones type of like formats that we like in dramas where it's just like, oh, what's the twist? What's the who's backstabbing who? It's just like super active for the brain. So I have noticed that sometimes there's an awareness that like if I need to sleep or I'm a little under, I'm not going to watch that type of content. Do you tend to recommend that those types of lanes of thinking?
1 hundo. So the word that you said right there, awareness. A
Hmm.
lot of people don't have that, and that's a problem. We need to get to a place where we become more self-aware, and that's why I love asking people to track their sleep and log their sleep. Super simple, super easy, paper and pencil. We can link one in the show notes for you guys, but awareness is key. And so, yes, whenever it comes to television before bedtime, a lot of people like to do that. A lot of people like to wind down. I would say if that's a non-negotiable for you and that's one way that you like to wind down, pick something that is familiar, that you've seen before, that's calming, that's comforting, that's maybe like an episode of Scrubs or Grey's Anatomy or something that you've seen before that you can kind of just put on in the background, The Office, whatever, and just kind of laugh and enjoy it. But it's not going to be, oh, so exciting and what's possibly going to
Hmm.
come next, because
Yeah.
that's dopamine right there. Whenever
Hmm.
we're watching something, and that's like what TV and movies are, cliffhangers. That is what it's all about, is it's designed to keep you watching. Same thing with the autoplay feature. It's designed to keep you there and keep you glued to the screen. Oh, what's going to happen next? I need to find out. And so you're getting this dopamine hit and you want to keep watching to get more dopamine. And so dopamine, while it can be used very useful in other circumstances, when it comes to an activity that's working against your sleep and preventing you from maybe doing other healthier wind down exercises, it's just not the greatest. So, there's a lot of different things that we can do in our wind down routine. And I know for some people, like, that's just really their go-to. I would just say, again, try and build that self-awareness, try and time limit it, turn off your auto play, just so
Mm.
you can kind of check in with yourself and see if are you feeling sleepy, or so
Yeah.
I realize that that's something that a lot of people probably don't want to let go of. However, it can absolutely, especially, let me just throw this in there, news, please,
Mm.
please. I
News.
I prescribe this to my clients, a news detox, if you can. I know that that's can be very challenging, but when you are a first responder or you're law enforcement, or you have some type of insider information and you watch the news, they'll inevitably get things wrong or exaggerated, or like there will be things in there that you as an insider have more knowledge and awareness, and that can just be very inflammatory. It can be anxiety provoking, it can be
Mhm.
frustrating, and so that will also be something that kind of gets you amped up too. So I would say, if TV needs to be a wind down part, do it outside of your bedroom and then pick something that's comforting, soothing, familiar, something that you've seen before.
Yeah, for sure. I know Office is like a common one with a lot of my
Oh, yeah.
friends. It's like when they're just feeling like kind of restless. But then yeah, it's funny because I still do this sometimes where I'm like, man, I'm just kind of too tired to read. Well, maybe
Yeah,
maybe I should read and fall asleep or just sit, listen, or chat with my wife, right? Leave the TV off. But I think what's more dangerous than TV now is phones, right? Scrolling social
yeah,
because, and I've said this before, some people might be very intentional about following, unfollowing certain content, but you know how algorithms are and they're going to give you other things. And it's hyper stimulating just by design in a way that TV doesn't really even touch, which is kind of crazy.
totally. 100%. And I want to go back to something else that you said is like, maybe I'm too tired to read. That's your body communicating with
Right?
you, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
And it's
exactly.
coming back to that awareness piece. So I have this saying that I like to say is that our bodies are great communicators. We are shitty listeners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Listen to your body. When you feel that wave of sleepiness coming on, it's coming on for a reason.
Yeah.
Ride that wave, go to bed. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But you're exactly right. Whenever it comes to, screens get a bad rap, and it's still blue light no matter which way you cut it. But whenever it comes to TV, that TV is going to be further away from you. It's not going to be like your phone right here in front of your eyeballs. But TV is, I should say, can be more passive. Whereas, yes, if you're gaming, if you're doing social media, again, that is designed to be ultra addicting, to be super dopamine fueled, to be something that just keeps you going and going and going down the rabbit hole until like sleepiness just forces its way in.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much, and I'm reading James Hollis right now. Are you familiar? The Jungian kind of psychologist. But he even talks about how like the news, like why do people get drawn towards the news? And it's not just like the shock and awe. It is that and stuff like that. But he also talks about how it's somewhat transcendent. It brings us outside of ourselves. And I think that what he means, or my interpretation of that, is like when I watch the news and there's like a shooting, then I'm like, oh shoot, like where, no pun intended, but like that could happen to me, or could it
Mhm.
happen to me, or where is that in relation to me, or why wouldn't it happen to me, or that could happen to someone I know, or man, I'm glad that I don't feel like that. That wasn't my reality. But in first responder work, it becomes work, right? And it's like, oh, that
Mhm.
reminds me of this thing, or oh, do I know anyone that works there, and this and that, and I wonder what they're
Mhm.
how they're handling the investigation, like just all this stuff that's not helpful to relaxing and then getting into this
Exactly.
this pre-sleep state.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, we talked about a ton of different things here today, and I think that there's just so much more that we can touch upon too. But yeah, you bring up just some really excellent points about things that we're doing that we maybe don't realize we're doing, but we get in our own way about. And that's certainly the social media and potentially TV, depending upon what type of content you're consuming.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you're absolutely right. We have covered a lot, and there's so much
I
that
think
like
we need
we'll
to do
have
another
to.
episode.
We will. I mean,
Yeah.
I want to know what you think about like fitness related to sleep and nutrition, and so let's make that commitment. Anything that you kind of want to close with and tell people where they can find you and your book.
I would say, I touched upon this earlier, and I do think that sleep is the foundation for everything. And if you're not, you get one brain, you get one body, you need to be taking really good care of it. And I think that, like we talked about, like supplements and nutrition and meal prep and everything is like so trendy right now. But sleep is the foundation for everything. So, like, listen to your body. give yourself the sleep that your body wants and deserves in order to create that better, healthier life for yourself in every sphere possible. So that's
Yeah,
what I'll leave
so
people
good.
with. And then I'll say, my name is Dr. Leah Kaylor. You can find me on social media, on LinkedIn. My website is Dr. Leah Kaylor. And then October 1st, 2025, my book comes out, If Sleep Were a Drug.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Dr. Leah.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into another episode of Blue Grit Radio. As always, support this community by subscribing, giving us a 5-star review, and following, liking, and sharing posts on Blue Grit Wellness on Instagram. You can reach me there or email me at bluegritwellness@gmail.com. Be well and stay gritty.